everyone, this is Liz Easton, and I wanted to take a quick second to invite you to listen in to the PC Book Club. Wait, I need to start again. Hi, everyone. This is Liz Easton, and I wanted to take a quick second to invite you to listen to the PC Book Club, aka PCBC. Every so often, Ricardo Avila and I chat about the books that you should be reading right now. It's just like sitting on your own private book club discussion, only there's probably slightly more references to true crime and Charles Dickens. I did not write this.
We may have to re-record that anyway, because I think you just said it's just like sitting on your own private book club.
She did. That was great. Sitting on a book club. Sitting on a private book club. That's pretty racy. Sorry.
Should I try again? It's just like sitting in on your own private book club discussion, only there's probably slightly more references to true crime and Charles Dickens. So if you're looking for the class with an occasional dose of the sass, then check out the PC Book Club right here on the Popping Collars feed. Class and sass.
I love it.
I was praying to the Lord for something.
Hi, I'm Greg Knight, and this is the Popping Collars Pilgrimage Project, a Popping Collars side pod where my co-host Ryan Parker and I attempt to walk around the world, or at least Spain. This month, we've got a special interview with Nancy Mead, the president of the Friends of the Anglican Pilgrim Center, a place of hospitality, learning, healing, hope, and love in Santiago de Compostela, Spain. The Anglican Pilgrim Center is a sanctuary in Santiago that offers lodging and spiritual formation for all walks of pilgrims, regardless of church membership. They also offer worship opportunities at the nearby Church of San Fis through the Anglican Camino Chaplaincy in Santiago. Nancy has been making annual pilgrimage journeys since the year 2000, something that she discusses during our conversation. That includes multiple walks on the various Camino trails to Santiago. In addition to serving as a president of the board for the Anglican Pilgrim Center, she is a canon of the Episcopal Cathedral in Madrid. When she's not walking, Nancy lives in Narragansett, Rhode Island, with her husband, an Episcopal priest. So let's get into it. This is Ryan and me talking to Nancy Mead from the Anglican Pilgrim Center. And here's a little bit about what they do from one of their testimonials.
Hi, my name is Tom Zarl, and I had the good fortune to walk the Camino 3 years ago. Prior to that, I didn't know much about it. I knew of it. But one day my daughter told me about a friend who had hiked the Camino and how it had changed her life. So after that, I was intrigued. I watched the movie The Way. I read story after story and book after book about how millions of lives have been impacted by the Camino over the centuries, and how such life-changing experiences persist even to this day. So a few months later, I found myself in the French village of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, where I took the first step of what would be, for me, a transformative life experience. Celtic poet John O'Donohue writes that there is a difference between being a tourist or a pilgrim. A tourist sees and enjoys sights and returns home pretty much the same person, maybe with a broadened mind. But a pilgrim sets out with the expectation that the person who returns just might not be the same person as the one who set out, but one with new truths and insights about themselves. And over the days as I hiked, I began to sense I was not a tourist, but maybe I was becoming a pilgrim. And I sensed that perhaps this Camino I was on was not going to be completed just because and when I returned home. As we entered into the plaza in Santiago, in the footsteps of millions who had walked those same stones before us, it was as if each step I had taken was a metaphor for life. Lessons to be learned and remembered. And arriving at a destination is not the only reward of a journey. It's not the what. It's really more about the why of the journey. So arriving in Santiago, not as a tourist, but as a pilgrim, I thought how helpful it would have been if there had been the opportunity to join with other pilgrims to process what we were experiencing. The Anglican Pilgrim Center would provide that important next step or stage in a person's personal Camino. Please consider your financial support in bringing the Pilgrim Center into reality, to being, as a setting for prayer, for worship, for dialogue, and reflection with other pilgrims before they return home and continue their own lifelong Caminos. Buen Camino.
I guess that's probably a good place to start, just so that, I mean, I can do an introduction of the Anglican Pilgrim Center, but maybe I should ask you, what is the Anglican Pilgrim Center? How long have you been operating, and what function does it serve pilgrims that are arriving in Santiago?
Well, it's been open since 2023. We opened it on the 1st of May. We raised the money during COVID, which was interesting. Very pleased to say we raised $1 million on Zoom during lockdown, and we discovered that you could buy real estate. You could look at real estate on the internet. So during lockdown, it was like, okay, type in wanted small hotel, minimum of 10 rooms, 8 bathrooms, must have a garden. And we had looked at a lot of places over the years. And one day up came small hotel for sale with 14 bedrooms, 6 en suite. It didn't have quite enough bathrooms, but it had a good start and a garden. And so two of us flew to Santiago and met with Bishop Don Carlos, who is the bishop of the Spanish Episcopal Church. And this is really his baby. It's just been his dream since 2016. And that's how I met him. And we looked at it and we put in an offer, and it took a long while. Nothing in Spain moves very quickly. And the woman agreed to sell it, and we got the keys on the 1st of May at noontime. And that afternoon, we welcomed our first guest because she had never stopped taking reservations on Booking.
No.
It was baptism by fire.
Yeah.
And it was, and the bishop had offered that we would serve breakfast. And so I live in Rhode Island, and so I was in Rhode Island, and the bishop is driving to Santiago, and he said, we're opening today. And I said, Bishop, how can we offer breakfast? There are no tables and chairs there. And he said, oh, I have them all in the back of my car. Well, he had this little car, and I'm thinking, okay, what can you put in the back of a little car? And it was just what I thought, little plastic tables and little fold-up, the little tiny fold-up tables and the little tiny fold-up chairs. I'm thinking, ugh. And so that's how we started. And he had made arrangements to get basically the basic equipment. And one of the funniest things he got was the world's best coffee pot. It is not possible to break this coffee pot. I mean, famous last words, I'll say that. And it's actually one of the best things in the house. So that's how we got started. And
that's such a Camino story. We bought basically an albergue, right? Like we bought a hotel conference center. Let's just figure it out all in the same day.
And it came furnished. So we had the woman had been running it as a little pension. So we had seen it some months before, and it was not totally the same furnishings when we arrived as it was when we were looking at it, but that was fine. And on a fluke, I was supposed to be walking up. I walked the first Camino in 2000 and met a woman from Cooperstown who was walking, and she and I became friends, and at the end of the first Camino sat out on the end of Finisterre, and she said, so where are we going next year? So for 25 years, she and I have, except for 2 COVID years, we meet at JFK. She lives in Cooperstown, and we go and walk somewhere. So all those walks you've been talking about, except St. Olaf's Way, we have done. she is now 80. She was 83 the other day, and I'm 76. So our walking is a little slower, but we still do it. But in 2023, we had planned to walk the Portuguese from Lisbon up. And when we got to the airport, it was pretty obvious Barbara couldn't walk. So we had 3 weeks. So we decided we would go to Santiago and check out our new place. Well, we spent 3 weeks buying knives and forks, pots and pans, all the stuff we needed. And so so I've been in on it since before the ground and on the ground, and get back 2 or 3 times a year. So that was a long answer.
No, it's fine. I have another question, and then I'll let you jump in. But my other question is, you're the president of the Friends of the Anglican Pilgrim Center.
Yeah.
So what is that job? What does it mean to be president? And is this the same thing as the Friends of the Camino, the American Friends of the Camino?
Yes.
Like what are these different organizations?
Yeah. So there are a couple of organizations. So probably you know about the American Pilgrims, and they are a really huge group. They have meetings and chapters all around the country.
I'm Virginia Pulver.
Hi, my name's Sharenda Barler.
My name's Daniel DeKay.
Hi, my name is Jackie Saxon, and I am an American Pilgrim on the Camino.
I've been a member since 2004.
I'm a member because the organization has really helped me tremendously.
It's made up of Americans from all over the country, and in fact, I think even folks outside the country are really part of it as well. It's like a family. We've all walked 1,000 kilometers across Spain or 300 kilometers across Spain, and we all share these wonderful memories of stopping in albergues.
They offer so many opportunities for you to commit and connect with other people.
When I get together with another pilgrim, it's like bringing the Camino to us. And when you're on the Camino, it's an experience like no other.
You might have 100.
And they I would say they differ from us because they are, I would say they are a secular organization, although there are plenty of people who are of religious persuasion, all different religions in that. And they raise money for scholarships, not scholarships, they raise money to do improvements on albergues, and they have Shell series services around the country. They have sponsored walks. Some of the organizations, especially on the West Coast and in Florida, are really active and do lots and lots of things. And they have hospitalera training, and they sponsor in 2 or 3 different albergues on the Camino. They provide support staff for the Caminos during the summer. So that's what they do. And then the Friends of we have the longest name, the Friends of the Anglican Pilgrim Center in Santiago de Compostela. It's a terrible name, but you only learn that after you get your 501c3 and people try to write a check. But we were founded, as I said, because Bishop Carlos, who is the bishop of the Spanish Episcopal Church, said that there was an Anglican center in Rome and there was an Anglican center in Jerusalem, and we needed the third leg of the stool for Christian pilgrimage, which is Santiago. And so for years, he's based in Madrid, and Spanish Episcopal Church is small, but it's pretty cool. He's been the bishop for 25 years, and each year in his 25 years, he has opened a church, not closed, opened. So he has little churches all over the country, and he is the only bishop, and he goes all over the country to all his little churches. And I think there are now 35 churches, and there are about 25,000 members. So it's small and it's mighty. And the bishop and all the clergy are paid a rousing 12,000 euro a year. And so for them, it's a real labor of love. And he has along Camino routes, if there's a church on the Camino route, his clergy provide whatever support that they can give. So he said, since we're already doing this, we need Santiago to be the end. And when we started out, he had found this gigantic palace. It was the most spectacular thing you could ever see. And Trinity Church helped out, and they sent an architectural team over and looked at 3 or 4 buildings and did up all kinds of drawings and business plans and all sorts of amazing things, and recommended this building, which was for sale for $3 million. And we looked at it, and it had been abandoned for 20 years, and it was a wreck inside. Spectacularly beautiful, Art Deco, huge garden, but the roof had fallen in, and there were lots of problems. So in addition to the $3 million to buy it, it probably would have taken another 4 or 5 to fix it. And that was, and we were trying to raise money towards that, and we kept thinking, okay, so we have our $1 million, and then I looked one day and it wasn't for sale anymore. And it was like, okay, what's plan B?
Nice.
So we looked at a lot of buildings. I think in the end we looked at about 20. And when this little one came up, we thought, well, this can be our starter home. And it's been fantastic. So that's the background on that. And the purpose of it is twofold. It's a place to be a place where pilgrims can land at the end of their pilgrimage, where they can talk and meet and decompress. We don't have a limit as to how long you can stay there. As I say, the former owner advertised on booking, and we continued that because we didn't know any other way to do it, because we didn't really know anything. And it proved to be really good. And then for the rest of it, you asked what my role was. My role is the chief money raiser, and I go around and talk about Camino and about the Friends. And the other part of what we do is to offer a church where non-Roman Catholics, and that's really wide and broad. It can be anything. It can be anything, and where there is a place for them to worship, where they're welcome and not told that unless they're a Roman Catholic in good standing, they can't come up to receive the sacrament. Although that seems to be changing. So that before we actually had a building, we had Santa Susana. And you probably
been there.
You probably knew Anna Noon then.
I did. It's one of the most surreal experiences, Ryan. This is you'll appreciate this. She was from Tennessee. She's Southern, yeah. And you're right in the middle of Santiago. Everyone, you've been walking this trail. Everyone around you has been speaking Spanish or some other international language, and you walk into this old church at the top of a hill in the park, and immediately you're greeted with, "Hey, y'all, welcome to Santiago."
Hi, y'all. Hi, y'all. And so she was there for a year full time, and she was fantastic. She was fantastic. When we opened the new building, it was hard to do both things at the same time, and so she is not with us anymore. And but I have to say, she got us where we are with Santa, and she was phenomenal with the Pilgrims, phenomenal. So what we have now is we have a rotating chaplaincy, which is much more cost effective for us because we provided Anna with a salary and housing and all the things that an Episcopal clergy person gets. And with with Casa Anglicana, we offer the chaplains free bed and breakfast, which is great. And they get themselves to Santiago, and other than bed and breakfast, they have to provide for themselves. So you asked about the new church. So Santa Susana was up on the hill, and lots of groups, when they got to the end of the Camino, said, I mean, we have to walk up another hill.
Not that bad.
And yeah, I know. And it was a little sketchy neighborhood at night. And some people were not happy being up there after dark. And Bishop Carlos had an arrangement with the archdiocese who allowed us to use that. And we shared it with the Greek Orthodox and the Russian Orthodox and the Ukrainian Orthodox, which was interesting. And that was a contract for a limited amount of years. So when it came time to renegotiate all of this, the archdiocese offered several churches, I think 4, and the bishop went and looked. And so the church that we have moved into as of March 1st, is called San Felix de Solovio, and it's known as San Fis, and it's right beside the market. You know where the food market and the fruit and vegetable market is?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so it's right beside that, and it's a really great location. And the
old church.
Yes.
That's like an old church there.
Yeah, and very interesting, because I don't know if you knew that Santa Susana was one of the 12 churches in the Codex Calixtinus that pilgrims were recommended to see. Well, San Fis is also one of these churches, and it is, I mean, there are a lot of legends in Santiago, so I don't know where this one falls in, but it is alleged that the hermit who saw the field of stars founded that little hermitage, and it was outside of the city, and it dates back to the beginning. So it's possible. I don't know one way or the other. The tourist board alleges that to be the case.
The story takes an interesting turn in the early 9th century. A shepherd named Pelayo witnessed a mysterious light or a field of stars shining over a specific location in what is now Galicia. Intrigued by this vision, he guided local authorities to the spot. There, they discovered a tomb believed to contain the relics of Saint James. This discovery was seen as a divine sign and quickly attracted the attention of local rulers and the church. King Alfonso.
It's really nice to be there, and it has it's in much better condition than Santa Susana. It has working electricity, and it has bathrooms, but they don't work. So it's, one step at a time. But it has a beautiful, beautiful tympanum over the door of the Adoration of the Magi. That is,
nice.
I'm going to say 12th century, but it may be earlier. But it's polychromed and it's beautiful. So.
Nancy, on the when we talk about the Camino, we take kind of a broad cultural approach as well, and a historical approach, and it seems to have, as an act of pilgrimage, seems to have weathered COVID. And there are many industries that doesn't. The Camino is an industry.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can talk a bit about. Obviously, you have this property post COVID. How is traffic for you all? I guess first question, and have a follow up to that.
Okay, traffic for us is excellent. I mean, traffic at the house. So the first year we were open, the first 6 months we had about 2,000 people, and our first full year we had 4,800 from 54 countries. So we are pretty much full. Pretty much between now and November, and it's full. And I don't know when you've been in Santiago recently, but Santiago is just hopping. There are a lot of people.
Yeah, when you this is maybe a difficult question. I don't know how you would gather this information, but what is your sense of the makeup of your guests and the people that pass through your doors? Are they primarily Anglican? I'm making an assumption there. Are you all aware of, or how aware are you of kind of the diverse motivations that are driving people to complete this journey? Because one of our big talking points, I think, is that it's increasingly not religious for people specifically.
Right.
So I know this is probably a difficult question for an Anglican community, but I'm just wondering if you all talk about that, what your awareness of that diversity is.
Yep, we totally do, because what we say is that everyone is welcome in our place. It's in our bylaws that we believer or non-believer, everyone is equally welcome. And on our booking, it says that we are a church-related organization, but that's all it says. So initially, because it was on booking and because it was relatively inexpensive, and I mean, it varies. That's a frustrating thing about booking is they follow an algorithm. So if Santiago is full, our prices go up. And if it's cheap, if there's nobody there, they go down. So it's possible to vary between 30 euros a night and 90 euros a night. And we haven't been able to figure out how to make it consistently cheap for pilgrims without excluding tourists. So initially we started, and I would have said that primarily it was Spaniards who came. I would say most of them were tourists. I would have bet in our early days it was 80-20, and that's just a guess. I mean, it has been hard for us to get the word out that we actually have this. We're doing better at that. But so I would say over the year, it has probably switched to, I think maybe now it's maybe 60 pilgrims and 40 tourists. But the interesting thing is that it doesn't make a speck of difference. Our chaplain, one of the best parts of the job, I think, is we have a communal breakfast room with one big long table, and breakfast is from 7:30 to 10, and everybody comes in, and we require our chaplains to have proficiency in Spanish because that's primarily the language that is spoken. But the conversations around the table are great because if the people are tourists, they're fascinated by the pilgrims. And if the pilgrims are as high as we all know pilgrims will be when they get done, they want everybody to walk the Camino. So our thought is, you never know if the tourist sitting there this year is going to be your pilgrim who comes in next year. And that table is, and the table in the garden are really good places of that. So, I mean, I think we would love to say that it was all pilgrim, but I think it's probably better this way. I mean, it is a wonderful chance for evangelism.
I kind of want to put a pin in the whole sort of infrastructure conversation because I think that there's a lot there, especially with the exponential growth of pilgrims over the last 20 years or so. I do have a quick question for you, Nancy, because, and this is great, since you've been sort of actively involved in pilgrim life since 2000.
Yep.
I often say the Caminos, all of them, the Inglés, the Francés, the Portuguese, all of them, the Via de la Plata, they're all living things. They morph and change and grow and adapt to whatever the pilgrim population is that comes through. Mm-hmm. If you could, what are maybe one or two of the biggest changes that you've noticed as a pilgrim from 2000 to today?
I mean, initially in 2000, there were very, very few people who walked the Camino as a lark. They had read about it, they'd seen the movie, this looks cool, let's do this. And I mean, that, and we saw doing it year after year and going, on all these different routes. And I've been on all of them right now, or the primary ones, except the Primitivo, which is on my list. But, in the early days, the pilgrims walked and they got there. And if there was a church, they went to church if they were believers. And it was a And most of the people that were there would go to church together, and you never asked the denomination. It was believers, non-believers. And by 8 o'clock, the lights were out and everybody was asleep. And everybody walked a long distance. And then some years later, there were a lot more kids, and they would walk the shortest distance that they could walk and get there early and take their shower and go out and carouse and party until the absolute last second before the door was locked, and then get up at the last second before they had to get kicked out of the door. And that was a little frustrating. And now, I mean, Barbara and I always stayed for the first, I would say, until Barbara hit 75, maybe the first 10 years, we stayed in all the albergues. Whatever it was, we stayed there. And I mean, we're really old now, but we were vaguely old then. And we are not fast movers, but we have no problem going 20 or 25 kilometers. And it's going to take us a long time. No problem getting up at 6 o'clock and heading out and getting in at 6. So for us, it was always iffy to find a bed. But I have to say, we never lacked for a bed anywhere, even in the old days. And then somewhere along the line, we decided that we would switch to booking. So the way we do it now is we wake up in the morning and think, okay, how far can we go today? And we look at booking and see what's available, where we want to go, and we alternate paying for it. And we take turns trying to find the cheapest place that we can find. And they've always been great. So that's changed. I mean, getting in advance, I would say almost everybody knows where they're going to sleep in advance. And I think that's sad because, that was a huge part of you trust that.
Yeah.
We walked from Canterbury to Rome, and that is not well supported. And we stayed in the police station. We stayed in a jail one night. But we never lacked for a bed. Somebody always found us a place to sleep. And that for me was as much of a spiritual experience as the walking part, because you are dependent on the kindness of strangers. That you put it to the test. I wish more people could do that, and I wish they had the faith to do it. But I can certainly understand why they don't, because it gets pretty crowded.
Ryan, did you have another?
Yeah, I was going to just ask, in terms of your own Camino experiences, if this is an impossible question, I'm not going to say but what is a most memorable Camino experience for you?
Oh, okay. Can I tell you two?
Sure.
Okay. So first one is we were walking along, and this car stopped. It was a very fancy red car. I mean, very, very, very fancy red car. And the man pulled over and said, we were in Italy, and we figured out that he said, you're going to come to a stream that you need to cross, and you're not going to be able to get across it. So when you come to this farm, knock on the door of the farm, and we'll help you get across. So we walked along, and we looked at the book, and the book didn't say anything about a stream that was going to be hard to cross. And it's like, okay, what's this all about? So we walked along, and there's the red car. So we banged on the door, and around the corner came this gigantic, and I do mean gigantic, tractor. Huge, with wheels. And the guy said, climb on, I'll take you across the river. Barbara got in the cabin, and I sat on the fender, and we went down around the corner. And it wasn't a little stream or a little rivulet or anything. It was a raging river. And we went across this river. I mean, I was hanging on for dear life going across this thing. And I mean, the water was way up there was mud everywhere. I mean, there was no way we could have gotten across there. And he got us to the other side, gave us a wave, turned around and went back. And that was like, we call those God showed up moments. And then another time, we were also in Italy, southern Italy, and we had made a side trip. So the woman I walk with is a lapsed Presbyterian who loves relics and dislikes organized religion of any kind, which makes us an odd pair because my husband and son are both clergymen. But she loves bones. So all of our walks, I can tell you where every relic is all over Europe because we go and see them. So we had to go see Padre Pio. And usually what we do at the end of the day is we check out where the route leaves out of town. Well, we couldn't find it. And I mean, we were good at finding the route. So there was a group the next morning walking out. So we thought, well, we're going to follow them. We know that you can tell they're on the route. And they were with a guide. And they were not amused that we were kind of shadowing them. Anyway, they gave us the slip and we got into the woods and we got lost. I mean, big time lost. And Barbara is a GPS person and I'm a map person, but we were seriously lost. And so we sat down and she cranked up the GPS and it said we were in Frankfurt, Germany. And I said, no, try it again. She said, right, no, we're in Newark Airport. So it's like bad. She said, get out your map. So I got out my map. Well, I have a bad habit of cutting the edges off the map to save weight. So I have a map that has absolutely nothing on it of any good use. It's like lots of bad language. And all of a sudden, there were lots of bells and these goats and sheep came dancing up through the woods and a shepherd. And he, it's like sign language. And finally, he wrote on the ground and ran us over to this little gate that said private property. And he said, go through the gate. And he's drawing all these. And whenever you get to a gate, open the gate, take the left pass, close the gate. And he said, we thought that in an hour or so, you'll meet another shepherd and he'll give you more information. So we did exactly that. A lot of gates and we were walking through this huge pigs over here. I mean, there are animals everywhere. And it was obvious it was some kind of a gigantic estate. And we walked for the hour and it was an hour and 10 minutes. And up through the woods came this guy with a sword, like a machete, about 3 feet, and he gave us some more instructions. And about an hour after that, we came to this amazing house. And shortly after that, we opened the gate, and there was a sign, and it said Monte Sant'Angelo, which is where we headed, 1 kilometer. So in all the years, I think those two would be the most amazing. I mean, our joke is we're frequently lost, but we're always someplace. We just don't know where it is. So, I tell people, no, you're not lost. You're somewhere. It's just, you just got to figure out where it is. But I mean, we've gotten on trains going the wrong way. I mean, just no money, and somebody has always bailed us out everywhere. I mean, the kindness of people on every Camino are, that's why everybody should walk, just to see that.
So that's a perfect segue to probably my last question for you, which is the premise of the project that Ryan and I are working on, which is kind of the big question of why. There's a lot of resources online of how to do a Camino, what to pack, all of this stuff. But there's not a whole lot of unpacking why this exponential growth, why this sort of boom time in pilgrimage. So the reason that Ryan and I started thinking about this was because, we're students of religion. We see patterns, and the pattern is that pilgrim trails are seeing more and more people. and that church pews are seeing fewer and fewer people.
Yep.
And it strikes us that there's some kind of conversation that's probably worth having in the space between what's growing and what's declining. If you had to put your 2 cents into the bowl, why do you think pilgrimage is becoming as popular as it is right now?
Well, I think initially it started with Martin Sheen's movie, which romanticized, and I think a lot of people started walking because of that. And I think word of mouth, certainly, people would come back and they say, "You have no idea how this changed my life." And a lot of time they couldn't even put their finger on what was changed, but they knew that something had changed. Then I think COVID came along and everybody was forced to stop and think and really think about, who am I? What am I doing? What is my life really like? Do I really need all the bells and whistles and things that I thought that I couldn't live without? Do you know the Arthur Brooks? He writes on he writes on happiness. He walked the Camino and he did an article 2016, I think it was. And in it, he said that for the church, he believed that and he's a devout Roman Catholic. He said for the Catholic Church, he believed that the biggest tool of evangelism that the church had seen in centuries, his word, was the Camino. And the kids really were looking for something and they didn't know what. And there's a guy, he's a Franciscan, and I think his name is Dave Pavanka. And he is, right now, I think he's the president of St. Francis in Steubenville, I think. He's a college president. But he said that people don't know what they're looking for, but they're looking for something, and they're finding it, or at least getting closer to finding it on the Camino. And I think that's true. I think when you walk along, for me, it's like the analogy of the backpack. I mean, that's as close as I can get. You stuff all of the stuff in your backpack when you get ready to go, and you have to have this, and you can't do without your hairdryer, and you have to have your phone, and you have to have your this, and you have to have that. And it's, you throw in all the what ifs. What if it rains? What if I go out to dinner? What if I have to look good? And as you walk along, sort of like day 2 or day 3, and it's like, God, this backpack has got rocks in it. What can I ditch? And you walk along and you see it, litter or the albergues, and by the time you get there, it's like, okay, this is really what I needed to do this, which is basically nothing. And I think that the kids are seeing that there's a lot of hollow and a lot of shallow, and that they're looking for something. And I think you're spot on, starting with the kids. I mean,
well, I think it's also just not the kids too. I mean, I think it's an interesting component because one could argue, and I'm not going to pick on organized religion, but one could argue that the church has a lot to learn from the Camino. So what are the kids finding on the Camino that they can't find in churches? And I think part of that stems from a lot of what you're talking about. The Camino doesn't bring a lot of baggage. The Camino doesn't ask you what you believe, or do you believe in gay marriage or Buddhism. Like, you can encounter people of other faiths or no faith at all, and it is an open and welcoming space that's not regulated by anything other than you got to go to bed, you got to get up and go do it the next day, right? And that's just kind of the Camino seems to in and of itself have unpacked those things, right? That churches oftentimes are so desperate to cling to. And I just want, it'll be interesting to see if communities can learn from that. And I also would argue that it's not just the Camino, right? I mean, the rise in kind of experiential purchases, if you will, over the tangible things, right? I want to go to a festival. I want to take this trip. I want to go on this curated experience is different than I need to own the new iPhone or whatever the thing is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's really true. And, you know, I mean, so I'm the grandmother of four kids. I mean, four grandchildren, 16, 18, 21, and 23. And they have all been raised to go to church. And now 3 out of the 4 are in college. And it's like, okay, so what happens now? One of them plays in a rock band, and he has hair like this and plays rugby. Granddaughter, her hair maybe green, maybe purple, maybe, you know, she's kind of gothy, and she's not covered with tattoos, but there are a lot of holes in various places. And they grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and went to a church that really didn't, they couldn't relate to it, and it had a wonderful youth group. And the youth group leader held them in there by taking mission trips. And when they went off to college, it was like, okay, so what happens now? And the oldest one called me and he said, I just want you to know I went to church on Easter. And this is good. He said, yeah, 25 of my fraternity friends and I went. And he said, we sat in the back and they were probably afraid of us. But he said, we loved the hymns and we sang parts and they were really nice to us at the coffee hour. And then Olivia said the same thing. And I think that so many people have wandered away from the church that the churches are figuring out that they'll take anybody that's a live body. And if it means being nice to kids with green hair and, you know, tattoos, well, that's the future of our I mean, the kids are the future. We're going to be dead. No.
Well, I also think that there's an aspect of this that you put your finger on, Nancy, which is, you know, I can think of a lot of, and I'm not, this sounds like I'm disparaging worship, and I don't mean that. It's got a sort of a passive quality to it when you go to church. And I understand that there's a liturgy involved and that we all have a part to play and like all of this stuff. But I feel like people are being called to be part of a larger story.
Yeah.
And you know, the way that you're able to talk about a shepherd giving you instructions to another guy with a machete to then like finding your way from a lost place to a found place is a much better story than I sat in church for Easter, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's just kind of what it is. And I think that that's part of the call of the Camino is this idea of where are you going to find your story in this bigger thing.
And that is true from whatever age you are. You know, I mean, it's certainly true with the kids, but I mean, this last Camino, so I go with these, what I call the high-end Caminos, and the people on the are really interesting because they have heard about it and they're just like the kids. I mean, they're curious, they want to know, and they see it. Okay, so I play tennis every day. Can I actually walk the Camino? Well, she's done it, and I, you know. So on our trip last year, we ranged from 60 to probably 82. Okay, so the 82-year-old was determined she was going to walk every step, and she did. And it was slow and it was painful and it was amazing because she walked along. And my job on these is I'm the sweeper. I make sure that there's nobody behind me so that everybody gets to the end. And I would sort of be back there and Carol would be walking along and I'd say, Carol, what are you singing? Oh, the Foray Requiem. And she would be singing and at top of her lungs. And of course, you meet everybody under the sun, and Carol met everybody. And so I was with her one day, and this group of kids came by, and I love this group. It was a group of kids from Seville, beginning of the big group, maybe 50 or 60 kids, big cross, banners, everything. And they're all going along and singing and all nice. And they came by and they said, hey, are you the old lady that's walking the Camino? I mean, these kids are, you know, really, really. And she said, yeah. Well, how old are you? It's 82. It's like, you know, a dinosaur. And So we're sitting there taking one of our breaks. And so the kids go and the cross goes. And then the tail end come the last three kids, and they all had on the same things. And they were listening to rap music and smoking weed. And they were all, and when we got to Ponte Vedra, it was dark, and we went up the stairs, and all the kids were sitting there, and they saw Carol and me come up the stairs, and they stood up and clapped for her. And when we got to Santiago, somebody came and said, Carol, this man came and he said, hey, he said, my wife told me that you walked the whole thing. Is it true? Are you really 82? And then, and it's hard to even believe this. Carol and I are on the plane going back to Boston, and somebody on the plane said, aren't you the lady who's 82 and walked the Camino? And it was like, Carol, you are a rock star.
If you would love to have the experience, but you feel through age, infirmity, health, disability, whatever, that it's beyond you, think again. It's not. And there are ways that you can actually experience, get that Camino experience as well. There's loads and loads of support. And don't feel that you're not being a true pilgrim, because you're having some support through the journey. As long as you, under your own steam, get along that 100 kilometers at the end, well, you're more than qualified to get your Compostela. You don't have to carry a huge pack or anything. It's okay if you have that transported. The purists like to walk every step and carry their pack every step of the way, and that's great if they're able to, but not everybody can do that. So there you go. Don't worry if you're, of an age or health situation or disability, you can do the Camino too.
So as a result of Carol walking the Camino, this week a group of 16 from my little town is going to walk the same route, and their line is, if Carol can do this, I can do it.
There you go.
But she went back and said, it was the hardest thing I ever did. My feet are never going to be the same, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I learned so much. So,
That's a beautiful place for us to end our conversation, I think. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Friends of the Anglican Pilgrim Center is the organization, and you can find them online.
Yep.
And you're up and running in Santiago now. The center, the church, everything's functioning, so everybody can find you, right?
Yes, and if you know anybody out there, as I said, we're running out of room, and there's a possibility of buying the building next door, which would be the other half of our building. So if you know anybody in your travels who would like to help us, we would not complain. So
yeah, I was just going to say, so Ryan and I are scheduled to be there probably next May. I want to say like May 2026, maybe June, because I think we may start in late May to do the Francais. So we'll definitely book our reservation.
Good. Well, yeah, good. That would be great. And maybe by the time you get there, all our rooms will have bathrooms. So we've been working on that. Anyway, so thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
I love talking Camino. So
yeah, it's great. Thanks. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.